eventually grow in their career. Now, having said that, we are now open to the Q&A session, and everyone can either type their questions in the chat box or in the comment section if you are watching it from the Facebook Live.
Sure, I'll be happy to take up questions. And I really do hope that this was valuable for all of you who've been watching us.
So we'll take some questions first from chat box of Zoom, then we'll go to the comment sections of Facebook. So there is a question here. What courses would you recommend for electronics and telecommunication engineering students?
Okay.
I'm assuming that he wants some courses related to astronomy, being in the particular field.
Yep, I agree. And since I'm from mechanical background, I would not say that I'm fully equipped to answer this question to start with. However, if you log on to EDX and Coursera, along with what ISS, the Indian Space Society that we're talking about here, you'll notice that there are many courses that connects what your field of interest is with the engineering course that you have taken. An interesting thing I'd like to put up for all the engineers out there who want to get into astronomy is that there are many ways to get in. They need from engineers, and that I noticed during my internship at Aries, was that you need to have a multidisciplinary engineering going for you. So even if it's mechanical, if I tie that up with optical engineering and instrumentation, that will make me much more favorable in terms of entering the domain as compared to being purely a mechanical engineering student. So I think that can definitely be a takeaway, because everything that you see, even the Devsal optical telescope, it had hydraulic drives to move that telescope around. But you also need electrical engineers to make sure that there is never a power cut and that everything in the system is connected. You need instrumentation engineers to make sure that the telescope is functional, that all components are in place. And you also need optical engineers, because this eventually is a telescope. It works with a 3.5 meter diameter optical mirror. So you have to have that. So a mix of it would be great if you want to go for masters, or if you want to pursue some internship. That is something definitely that you can look into.
So to summarize, I can say that just to shift from one department to another would not be so much of a logical choice, but to take help of your present department, your present field of study, and then to move your career in that manner.
Yeah, I agree. You need to connect the right dots, that is.
So there is the question that what is the role of mechatronics or AI in space exploration, rovers, or say astronomy?
A lot, because you can definitely relate to what's happening in the domain right now, be it with Blue Origin or SpaceX. Everything that they're designing is based on guys. It's a field wherein, see, if I talk about from a programming perspective, that is increasingly becoming involved with what the present astronomy domain has to offer. So if you have interest that way, you can definitely get into it. Although make sure that your engineering degree and what specialization you're taking is directly relatable to the kind of role that you are seeking for in the future. So that would be one way to go about it.
Then they are asking to suggest some books on astronomy which doesn't include mathematical theories related to astronomy. So they want something very much more theoretical.
If it's theory we're looking at, without mathematical theories, I don't see that happening much, because when you talk about physics and maths, you want those to be two separate subjects, but they are not. They're very much interlinked. Specifically, I think if you just have an interest in astronomy, books like Cosmos would do you more good. If you want to truly understand or learn a specific part, that's the reason I've talked about courses that you can take online. So probably from there, when you go under the resources section, they do offer you the opportunity to find out some books that you can follow for those courses or to understand similar topics. So I'd recommend, depending on what you are interested in, you should select those books accordingly.
So another question is, what can be more coming up in astronomical observation gadgets, and what will be the future of telescopes?
So for telescopes, I think most of us need to understand that astronomy is not only done on Earth, it's done from space, it's done from different wavelengths. Like you have, per se, for example, radio astronomy. So it's the next upcoming astronomy in India. IIT Indore have recently set up an entire facility with people pursuing their PhDs and their masters in radio astronomy. The good part about radio astronomy is that you can do it both at the night time and the daytime, because it's radio waves. You can work with it. For optical and ground-based telescopes, you're only limited to a certain time frame, and light pollution these days, along with other factors, do not make it very favorable. So I feel if you really want to get into the field, you need to look outside the zone of optical-based astronomy and look into other options like this.
So next is, can we join astronomy after BSc Physics Honors?
Oh, definitely. There is no doubt
That
about it.
that would be definitely one of the correct decisions to make.
Exactly. I think taking BSc Physics was in itself a great decision. If I talk about Aries, for example, they only take PhD students. Some of them even join after BSc Physics. So you can definitely check that out for institutes like Raman Research Institute, IIA, Indian Institute of Astrophysics, IIST. So all these institutes are great in terms of giving you more opportunities ahead after BSc Physics.
So next is, which integrated subjects would move a student to get him or her more attracted towards astronomy and astrophysics? So I think they mean to get some basic core subjects that will eventually help them to pursue astronomy as a career.
I think I'd need more details. Where do we want to land from an astronomy point of view? Because see, you can either be an engineer trying to find your way into the field, or you can be somebody with a theoretical background trying to get into the theoretical side of things.
So it depends on where they see themselves in that particular field.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, and there is a question related to how to build up a career in astronomy or astrophysics or in cosmology. I have a deep interest in it. So
That's
I think that
great.
is answered, that you need to take as many, not as many, but it needs to, it is important for you to grasp knowledge of the basic concepts first. You need to be sound in those. Then you need to see how that relates to your present field of study and how you can connect your way through it.
Yeah, and that's what I feel that we're trying to explain today, is to take up projects or research projects at institutes wherein these things match or mash together. So I did have 3 ideas for everybody who's joined in and has an interest. Firstly, research projects. Like, this is to dwell into astronomy. If you are from any other field, if you're from BSc Physics, probably going to be really easy. But if you're from engineering background, let's say, take research projects. Don't just take them, do them so well and do it so properly and well defined way that you can write a technical paper on this, or probably publish it or present it in a conference. Now, this will enable you to meet people from the field, talk to other ideas, and that coming on to my second point, which is networking, is how you will grow and meet more people who probably might be from your background, or no professors who take up engineering students, and you can connect by that means. And second is to gain knowledge, like Samarth mentioned, through online courses that you find interesting. Cosmology courses on EDX are fantastic. I highly recommend them. So definitely give those a shot, because that would expand your knowledge. Make sure that you apply that too, not just for the sake of courses, but also in your research projects.
Also, one more thing to all the audience who is present here, that I am sorry if I flung some questions, because there are a lot of questions coming in, and we have a given time frame. So still, I'll try to take as many questions as possible. So the next one is, does that telescope help to draw a map of universe like SDSS and EBOS?
Okay, so I'll talk from the perspective of when I was there, which was in 2018 starting. So what that telescope is being used at right now is specifically for the PhD students who are at Aries. Each student who's there pursuing their PhD is working on some particular object. Now, those can be a nebula, it can be a star cluster, it can be an amateur solar system. So they all have objects on which they are researching and publishing their papers on. So this telescope facility gives them a chance to not only view that particular object, but to take in a lot of data. So there's a lot of data involved in terms of the changing velocities, the changing, you know, the light source, of how it's differentiating. Like if you quasars per se, like we have read about them, neutron stars. So when these change in terms of their properties, that is to be captured by that PhD student, and it needs to be work on what theories they'll apply to justify what just happened, because they have the observation and they need to justify it by a physical sense. So that's what it's used at Aries, but at different sites, different telescopes would mean different things and would be looking at different objects in space.
So does Aries internship has any projects related to mechatronics?
There are two mechanical engineers, as far as I remember, working at Aries, and they take up students for internships. Mechatronics, as per my understanding of the field, would definitely be considered. What you need to do when you apply for these visiting student program, not just at, but at any institute of India, is to have some means in which you can connect with the mentor or the guide that you're interested to work with. I'll tell you why I'm saying that is because that guide or that faculty might want to do something that they don't have time for. That's why they take these internships. Like the mechanical engineer at Aries wanted to do this study but didn't have the time for it. So he took up a student and worked with them on a project to make sure he has what he needs. So you also need to make sure that when you approach these people via emails, you are very specific in talking about the research areas you're interested in, and ask them what they want to work on and see how you can align your interest with it. That's a better way to approach these internships.
Right. So the next is, what should be the positive approach as an engineering student to astronomical arena, whether to learn space programming or to start with courses or to start with internships in ISS. Also, a similar question is that now I am a mechanical engineering student. So what should be my focus to get in space related associations? So they are confused between whether to take courses or to apply the knowledge with a hands-on experience, like like an internship, maybe a virtual one or an actual one, or whether to learn space programming. So what is the correct approach to get into the astronomical arena?
But I feel to each their own. You might feel that you get an opportunity before you get to learn something. I don't see that a fit. So if you talk from my perspective, what I did in Aries as well was I'll go it like a story, otherwise it just gets a bit boring. Which is when I got selected, which was in November 2017 for this program. I immediately reached out to my mentor and asked him, what do I need to know to make sure that I'm successful at this internship? So I thought he'd write a couple of things that I already know about, but there was an email conversation and he sent me a huge email talking about all that I need to know. He asked me to look at seeing beforehand, read a couple of research papers, and he wanted me to know answers. Now, this is when I just completed my master's and I only worked with 3D CAD softwares. I didn't have the knowledge of answers. So, luckily, a couple of months back, I started working on a hands-on simulation a hands-on introduction to engineering simulation, which was on EDX. But I was, taking my time to complete it. The moment he said that I need to know answers for this, I completely got into the course. I made sure that I understand it. I completed it all. That's the best thing about EDX, is that at the end of certificate course, if you have opted for it to be a certificate course, you give an exam and get the certificate at the end. So to pass those exams, you need to make sure that you truly understand what you're getting online. It was not just a couple of videos and I'm just sitting there watching it, but to make sure that whatever I'm watching, I'm actually applying it and using it in all those exams in the end to get that certificate. So I got to work on it. He told me that I need to know NX. Luckily, I knew it beforehand, so I didn't have to practice my hand much on it. And then when I reached there, I had the right skill set or the tools to talk to him about what we want to accomplish and where we want to go at. The more the more earlier you establish that in an internship, the better it is to make sure that you can quantify in the end that 1 2 3 these were the objectives, and 1 2 3 these are the results. And it works wonderfully well, I've noticed, with approach that people can take.
So I see here many questions related to how to get into the astronomical field, and you all are from different fields. I see many are typing in the chat box that they are from electrical department, some are from instrumentations, some from mechanical. So their major question arises is what they need to do in their undergraduation. That should be helpful for them to get into astronomical field. For that, I'll repeat what Sanchita said, that take a proper logical decision with accepting what knowledge you have about astronomy at first. If you lack in it, if you are just fascinated with the concepts but do not have some technical knowledge about it, then start with taking courses. To that level, you cannot go into an internship, because for internship, as she mentioned, that even with the master's degree and the experience of that whole academic career, then too she had to enroll in a course and learn a completely new software. So that is important, that you have the basic fundamental knowledge of whatever technical field you want to go into. Once you get some knowledge about it, once you see how it works, along with grasping the knowledge, you'll also understand how it is being applied in the present day world, because they'll be teaching you about the application of that knowledge in that particular course, whichever you enroll in, right? So then you can
Agreeing with
relate
you.
how, being in your present field, you can go into that particular field which you want to land up.
हाँ
So you need to take a
और
very
और
thought.
10 मिनट में और
Yeah, sorry for that, right? So start with course. If you are not good with the knowledge, if you are your concepts are sound enough, then you must look into some internships that you can have an hands-on experience. It is quite difficult now, I understand that, because of the COVID pandemic, but at least you can learn some software, apply for a virtual internship where you are asked to simulate something, you are asked to design something in a 3D CAD model, software. So that is one generalized answer for whatever questions people are asking here regarding how to move, what a particular uh, way to go into astronomy. Do you want to add something here, Sanchit?
No, I think you very nicely had put it up. Samad, because these steps are seriously really important if you are genuinely interested in the field. And going one at a time is the best way to make sure that you're able to complete them.
So again, a question here regarding some research program. That, ma'am, as you said that the research programs for astronomy, where and in which platforms do I find them?
So the best way and the most authentic internship programs are on the very sites of these institutes that I've talked about. You can go under careers, or you can find out it's there on separately mentioned that a visiting student program or a summer internship or a virtual internship or remote internship. It'll be mentioned something like that on their official sites that you can find those on. You can also find it out, and that's how I found one of my internships, not the astronomy related, but the other internship that I did was on intershala.com. So internshala, I've seen it has a 50-50 kind of image in front of everyone, because there are many authentic and non-authentic internships mentioned there. So you need to again be very vigilant in figuring out what is the internship which is authentic, and then go about it. So apart from that, I personally make sure that I go to those sites. So that would be the recommendation from my end.
To add to Sanchita, you can first start by listing out which institutions are there in the first place, which are right now focusing on astronomy, and then you can look into the websites of those to see whether they provide internship or not. Right. So the next question is, where do we get the data of planetary positions and trajectory equations with respect to position of Earth?
I think it is available on one of the portals from NASA, but I'll still have to figure it out and find before sharing it with all of you. So, just for the information of the crowd, that if you have any other burning questions apart from what me and Samarth are working out in this webinar today, you can send those to me over LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to respond.
So again, a question that, ma'am, I am an aerospace engineering student of a third year. What do I need to direct my career towards astronomy? So I'll sum up these questions for you, which I also faced during my undergraduation. That once you get into the engineering field, then to pursue a career, a professional career where you can even make money out of your passion. So people are, especially students, are very much confused to how to direct their career from engineering domain to astronomical one, because in India especially we do not have much institutes which offer students to pursue their masters in astronomy if you are from a engineering background, if you are from an you have done BTech or BE in engineering in some engineering department. So that is why I also get this question many times. I think IUCAA provides an integrated course that is of MTech and PhD for astronomy, but I'm not too sure whether they allow certain kinds of backgrounds or not. That you need to find out from the website. But still, yes, Sanjita. So there is the question that is posted here.
Yeah. So I do remember that Indian Institute of Space Technology, IIST, takes up students from mechanical engineering and other engineering backgrounds. So that's one place that you can check that. But I'd say if you know what engineering field you're in and where you want to reach out, so there are two ways I can see that you can work it your way around. Is that looking at the final place where you want to be, work your way backwards. What do I need to make sure? What skills do I need to have to make sure that I reach to this spot? If you work your way back, you'll realize you will probably have to get a master's or a PhD before working at that role to get there. Now, back another step, and you'd realize to get into a master's program related to it, you need to have a strong set of skills, but you also need to stand out in the competition, right? Because there are a lot of engineers or a lot of people who are interested. So how you can be that step back while you're doing your engineering or when you're doing your undergrad or your masters, take up projects, take up minor projects, major projects, internships, or just summer internship ideas. You don't even need to do it under an institute, to be honest with you. If you gain your knowledge online and you find that there's something that you can work on, making your own personal project, like this would be my last approach, but this is again an approach that you can take. A personal project working on, even if you read a lot of technical papers, you find out, yes, this is something that you find interesting and would like to work on. Approaching people online, approaching professors online to find out whether they would be supportive of it, or doing it yourself. The second approach is that networking approach I talked about, which is find people online. Go to LinkedIn, use the filter tab, put in the information you want. Suppose you want to pursue your PhD from some institute, be it an Indian institute or an international institute. Put it in. Put it in and see what results you have. You can also put in the country and see whether you want to only see Indians or you want to see non-Indians, and look at their career path. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can take up the steps that somebody took to reach where they're at and kind of use it to your advantage, and possibly go on the same field, and you can end up there. So that's another approach. Again, greatly helpful because I know about it since I've used it. So I'd recommend all of you to just go for it.
So the reverse engineering approach is the
right.
Okay, so one more here, one technical one, that why did you choose trias then quads in meshing, and what have you chosen CFX or Fluent for CFD? So what did you choose?
Right, that's a great question. So this was huge conversations that I had with my guide of what kind of elements you want to take. So for real 3D application and models, you'd notice that the triangular set of elements work in our favor. The simulation becomes a lot more easy to do, and the number of nodes are less because you only have 3 pointers, like in a triangle. And even in spaces which are like the corners or the ones where you have not provided a fillet is a curvature, you can have triangular elements there. So it makes it easy. The second question was, I just skipped that one. It was about
what you have chosen, CFX or Fluent for CFD.
That's right. So not major differences between CFX and Fluent. These are two, for the people who are not aware, Ansys provides CFD under two categories. One is CFX, the other is Fluent. Both of them very strong software parts. So I, in my analysis, used Fluent. So I remember working on it. I remember notifying all the differences, and both me and my guide worked on it and noticed that we are getting much closer results in Fluent as compared to CFX, and decided to go with it.
So we'll take some questions from FB Live. I think there are 3 questions especially that Arunam wants to ask. And yes, Arunam. So he's the operations manager at ISS and he'll be taking charge of the FB questions.
So good evening, ma'am. It was great to hear you and know your insights about astronomy. So now, firstly, I would be taking some questions from the FB Live, and then there are 3 questions from my side, which I would be asking you. So the first question would be that why in your calculations, while using the CFD software, have you considered any of the density fluctuations?
So we did consider density also for the elements and for the dome enclosure as well. So these are all basically the input that needs to be put inside the system as a standard in a typical CFD simulation, because of which you are able to run the simulation software. So it won't run if you don't put in the necessary. Yes, definitely it was considered.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. Is having a PhD necessary to make a good career in astrophysics, or masters would be enough?
I'd say that would depend on your interest. If your interest area is to get into the research and theory side of things, doing a PhD in astrophysics would make you more employable per se. But if you want to get into a field where you find that you want to go from an engineering background and you want to retain that engineering background, not get much into the theory and research and see how you can contribute, I believe a master's should help you do that.
Yeah. Moving on to the third question. So this one seems to be a more like observation part. So if I pursue the observation part in the astrophysics, can I still work in the theoretical aspects? Like they kind of different in deep aspects or what?
So I feel the question is a bit vague. I would have
Yeah.
appreciated a bit more specific.
So I think he wants to know the difference between the observation part and the theoretical part, and if he can pursue both at the same time.
So observational astronomy is supportive of theoretical astronomy. So you can't just have theory when you're pursuing your PhD in astronomy or astrophysics. Given an example of Aries per se, like those people are working very specifically on an object, and they're using that observational astronomy point of view to get all their data. So they can't do experiments on those objects, but they can observe. So observational astronomy is supportive of their theory. I'll put it that way. These are not different three items. These are both items under the.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah,
Correct.
correct. So now I'd be coming to my questions. So first question from my side would be like, since you have worked on the Mars mission project, so right now recently NASA has launched the Ingenuitycopter. I think you must be knowing about it. So what are your insights about it?
Yeah, see, when I went for that competition, which now is something that I did 11 years back, NASA had just initiated their idea of getting onto the mission to go to Mars. So they didn't have, they didn't have the clear picture on what they would want to do, in the sense that it was all about making a rover and making sure that it's good enough to move on the surface around Mars and to find minerals. Most importantly, that was the kind of project that we did, or our competition was about. And if it's able to find water on Mars, water as in liquid water, solid water. So yeah, when you talk about the mission that recently happened, it was a wonderfully great achievement for sure, because to get a copter running in a space that is very different from the atmosphere that we have on the Earth, only by the data that you've received from there is in itself a huge feat. So commendable one achieved by the engineers, but definitely yes, that gives you a little bit of idea of what might be the implications of this in the future for other planets or maybe even for Mars.
Yeah, correct. So moving on to the second question. So like from your slides, we have seen that you are so much familiar with and experienced with CFD. So what do you think are the main differences between using Ansys Fluent and Ansys Workbench?
So I have not worked on Ansys Workbench, so it'll be difficult for me to figure out those differences. I only used Ansys CFX and Fluent for this analysis, so I'd say that my knowledge is a bit limited in that field only.
Okay, no problem. So moving on to the third question. So what would be your advice for someone who is not from a science background, but like is very much motivated to study astronomy as a recreational activity?
If it's recreational, then there are many ways for you to engage in it. Per se, you don't have to go for any courses, but you can join NGOs and offline associations to go for overnight sky observations or to take up overnight sky parties that are not there just in Delhi, but it's across India. Space, I know, is one organization which is working on an all India level to make sure that they have more members in to, just go for stargazing per se, or, observe a meteor shower. So for everybody who's joined in, need to research which such organizations work in your area and gives you a chance, a very good place to start from is your local planetarium, because they always are connected with such associations who and host stargazing parties. So I'll say that will be a good place to start.
Okay. I think everyone must have got the gist of thing. Thank you. That
We'll
would
take
be it
some.
from my side.
Thank you, Arunab. And we'll take some final questions from here. And one is about. Let me just check it again. So Aries is not accepting students for visiting students program. It's showing that from 28th Feb 2021 on website. So I'm not clear what do you want to ask on it. So as she also mentioned that Aries has been closing this year's program, I think, and they will look into the next year's program if we hopefully we get rid of COVID-19.
But luckily, other institutes have changed their approach. Probably Aries will too, by providing virtual internships for people. So definitely give that a shot.
Yeah. Then can you please tell us what design software are best for beginners in astrology designing? So first of all, that is something you got wrong. It must be astronomy or astrophysics, what you are trying to say. But I'm not so sure why he's asking about designing software if you are looking into astronomy. Maybe related to some design of an astronomical instrument.
Yeah, I get the point. And from that place, I'd say I've also covered that in my slides, that any software would do. To be honest with you, you can SolidWorks, AutoCAD, or even NX Unigraphics. All you need to know is how to fully work on that software, because the features are same throughout these softwares, only the commands are different. So if you fully understand how to work on one, it will be easy for you to work on any of these softwares. It just takes a little bit of time to understand the basic commands and how those work. But don't get into this mindset of learning as many softwares as I can. Get into the mindset of, if I'm learning one software, it needs to be really nicely learned.
So I think that's it. Those are the questions posted in the chat box, and we have covered the Facebook live questions also. And I must tell you, there are numerous kind words that they all have said in the chat box, especially about how informative and how much helpful this webinar is for them.
Yeah, I was wishing that it would be the case. So thank you all for listening to me. Thank you, Samarth, for hosting such a wonderful webinar, for giving us all a place to interact. So thanks. I'm glad that I was able to provide some value.
So thank you very much. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you all who have joined in from the Facebook Live. And we are glad that it was a successful webinar. So that's it from my end. That's it from Sanchita's end. We'll see you again in near future, coming up with more such helpful webinars, such informative ones. And till then, stay safe, stay at your home. That is the condition today. I hopefully we'll get rid of it. So
yeah, thank you all.
So I'll end the session here. Thank you all for joining. Have a good night.